The life and legacy of Muhammad Ali represent a cultural phenomenon that extends far beyond the confines of athletic achievement. As one of the most recognizable figures of the 20th century, his journey from a young boxer named Cassius Clay to a global humanitarian icon has been documented extensively. However, the fascination with his life has in recent years occasionally veered into the realm of speculative narratives regarding his final resting place. This analysis aims to explore the intersection of public curiosity, the technical realities of burial, and the deep respect accorded to a man whose influence continues to resonate globally. By examining the facts surrounding his burial at Cave Hill Cemetery, we can better understand why such stories emerge and how they function within the context of legacy and memory. When Muhammad Ali passed away in 2016, his funeral was a defining moment of global unity, drawing leaders and admirers from every corner of the earth. In accordance with his deeply held Islamic faith, his burial was a private, dignified affair, intentionally kept away from the public gaze. The family's explicit goal was to ensure that a man who had lived his entire life under the intense scrutiny of the media spotlight could finally find a space of true, uninterrupted peace. This desire for privacy is not merely a matter of personal preference but a fundamental aspect of Islamic tradition, which emphasizes modesty and the avoidance of ostentation in death. This context is vital for understanding why any later discussion regarding his burial is met with such sensitivity and ultimately silence. In the years following his interment, stories began to circulate suggesting that unauthorized inspections or mysterious observations had occurred at his gravesite. It is a common occurrence for public figures, especially those held in such high esteem, to become the subject of urban legends. These narratives often stem from a human desire to find significance or something more in the aftermath of a great person's passing. From an analytical perspective, it is necessary to separate these speculative accounts from the reality of cemetery management. Large institutions like Cave Hill Cemetery are governed by strict protocols and legal requirements. Any structural maintenance, whether related to soil stability or vault integrity, is a matter of civil engineering rather than a source of metaphysical wonder. To address the rumors of unusual findings from an objective standpoint, one must consider the variables involved in human decomposition and site management. When a body is placed in a vault, factors such as moisture control, oxygen levels, and the quality of the burial materials play a significant role in how remains are preserved over time. Forensic science has long established that these environments are rarely uniform. What an observer might perceive as unexpected preservation is often a predictable result of these environmental conditions rather than an anomaly. Understanding the science behind these processes helps to deconstruct the mystery, allowing us to see these events through the lens of physics and biology rather than sensation. The role of religious practice in burial cannot be overstated when analyzing these narratives. Because Muhammad Ali was not embalmed, as per Islamic mandates, the natural process of decomposition is technically intended to take its course. Some observers might find the reality of this process jarring if they are accustomed to the modern, often antiseptic nature of Western funeral practices. When rumors arise regarding the state of a body, they are frequently based on a misunderstanding of these natural, yet dignified traditions. By educating the audience on these specific cultural and religious practices, we move away from the speculative mystery and toward a more respectful appreciation of the choices the family made to honor his faith. One of the most persistent aspects of these stories involves claims of structural or environmental changes, such as flickering lights or temperature fluctuations near the site. In any cemetery, particularly one with rolling topography like those in Kentucky, minor geological shifts are standard. Engineers frequently monitor these sites to ensure that gravesites remain stable and accessible for grieving families. These technical assessments are routine, not extraordinary. By characterizing these necessary maintenance tasks as mysterious inspections, speculators create a narrative of secrecy where none exists. A documentary approach acknowledges these professional obligations as a hallmark of responsible cemetery management, ensuring the long-term preservation of the site for future generations. It is also important to consider the psychology behind why these rumors gain traction. Muhammad Ali was a man who seemed to defy the limits of human potential throughout his life. Whether it was his speed in the ring or his unwavering stance on civil rights, he constantly challenged the status quo. It is only natural that his followers would subconsciously project that same extraordinary quality onto his afterlife. The narrative of an unusually preserved burial is essentially a myth-making process, a way for fans to keep the legend alive in a way that feels tangible. Recognizing this psychological need for a continued connection to a hero helps to contextualize the rumors without giving them undue scientific or historical weight. Furthermore, the lack of official comment from the Ali family or the cemetery authorities is often misinterpreted as a sign of something to hide. In reality, this silence is the standard response of any professional entity. Engaging with tabloid rumors or unfounded internet theories would only provide them with legitimacy and, more importantly, would violate the privacy that the family has consistently sought to protect. The silence should be viewed as a gesture of profound respect and institutional professionalism. In the era of instant information, the ability to maintain privacy is an achievement in itself, reflecting the dignity with which the family continues to guard his legacy. The impact of Ali's life on social justice, sports, and international diplomacy is so vast that it is easy to see why the public remains so attached to him. From his protest against the Vietnam War to his efforts to feed the hungry worldwide, his actions were always guided by a sense of moral clarity. When we discuss his burial, we are implicitly discussing the weight of a man who changed the world. This is why any information or lack thereof regarding his resting place feels significant to so many. The story is not about a grave, it is about the difficulty of letting go of someone who felt larger than life. When we move into an analysis of the scientific claims, we must rely on the expertise of pathologists and forensic experts. They would argue that no single burial site is immune to the laws of nature. The unusual reports are rarely backed by data or peer-reviewed observation. Instead, they rely on anecdote and hearsay. In a documentary context, it is vital to emphasize that eyewitness accounts are notoriously unreliable, especially in environments where the observer is already expecting to see something extraordinary. Confirmation bias plays a massive role here. If someone walks into a grave site expecting a mystery, they will find one, even in the most mundane of conditions. The material science of a burial vault is another area where speculation often misses the mark. Modern vaults are designed specifically to resist the elements, and their effectiveness can lead to a state of preservation that might seem surprising to the layperson, yet is entirely standard to a professional mortician. These structures are built to protect the remains from external contamination and environmental degradation, which is precisely their function. To suggest that such preservation is unexplained is to ignore the effectiveness of the very engineering that was purchased to protect the dignity of the deceased. We must also look at the cultural influence of Islamic traditions in the United States and how they are perceived by the wider public. Because many people are unfamiliar with the specifics of a janazah, the Islamic funeral prayer and burial, they may interpret the simplicity of the process as something unusual. This cultural gap is often the breeding ground for misinformation. By explaining these traditions, such as burying the deceased on their side facing the Qibla, we bridge the gap between curiosity and understanding. Education is the most effective tool to combat the spread of sensationalized and potentially disrespectful myths. The narrative of secrecy also ignores the reality of modern security in prominent cemeteries. Many high-profile gravesites are under 24-hour surveillance to prevent vandalism and ensure peace for all interred individuals. This security is often misconstrued as guarding a secret or preventing unauthorized access to a special site. In reality, it is standard procedure for any site of significant public interest. By framing this as a professional security matter, we remove the air of conspiracy and replace it with the logic of operational safety and property management, which is far more accurate and respectful to the institution. It is helpful to contrast the life of the man with the rumors surrounding his death. Muhammad Ali was a man of transparency. He was famously candid about his views, his mistakes, and his triumphs. He lived in the light. The irony of his burial being the subject of shadow-filled rumors is something that deserves to be highlighted. He would likely have found the obsession with his physical remains to be a distraction from the message he spent his life promoting, the message of peace, faith, and service. Focusing on his tangible contributions, his charities, his speeches, his courage, is a more fitting tribute than engaging in baseless speculation. In examining the whispers mentioned in viral media, we should categorize them as folklore rather than journalism. Folklore serves a function in society. It creates a shared history and keeps the spirit of an icon alive. However, it is essential to label it as such. When we present these stories in a documentary format, we must maintain a clear distinction between the legend and the record. By analyzing the legend, we understand the public's enduring love for the man. By looking at the record, we maintain the truth of his history. This dual approach provides the viewer with both an engaging story and an honest assessment of the situation. The endurance of these stories also speaks to the way we collectively grieve. For many, Ali was a constant presence, a hero who seemed indestructible. The reality of his passing and the finality of his burial can be hard for fans to process. Speculative stories fill the void left by that loss, offering a way to cope with the reality that even the greatest of us are subject to the same cycle of life and death. This is a deeply human, if technically inaccurate, way of honoring a legend. It shows that he has not been forgotten, which is perhaps the greatest compliment any public figure can receive. As we conclude this analysis, we return to the core fact. Muhammad Ali rests in a place chosen for its peace and dignity. The rumors that have swirled around his site are a testament to his massive impact on the world, but they should not be confused with reality. By prioritizing the facts, the necessity of routine maintenance, the protocols of the cemetery, and the beauty of his religious traditions, we can better honor his memory. It is a more respectful path to celebrate his life as it was lived, rather than creating myths about his life after it ended. Ultimately, the best way to interact with his legacy is to engage with his work. His archives, his fights, and his philanthropic endeavors are the true records of his life. These are the elements that are real, verifiable, and monumental. When the urge to speculate about the private details of a burial arises, it is worth asking whether that curiosity serves to honor the man or merely to satisfy a personal craving for mystery. A documentary should always aim to elevate the subject, and in the case of Muhammad Ali, there is already so much greatness to elevate that we do not need to invent more. The silence that surrounds the site at Cave Hill Cemetery is not an indictment or a mystery. It is a sign of a promise kept. It is a promise to let a man who gave so much to the world finally have his own space. In an age where everything is documented, shared, and debated, the existence of a truly private space is a rarity. We should respect that space as the final, and perhaps most important, request of a man who commanded the world's attention for over 5 decades. His legacy is secure, not in the ground, but in the hearts and minds of those he inspired. Finally, let us reflect on the nature of truth. Truth is found in the life lived, the principles defended, and the love shared with others. The physical state of a resting place is incidental to the monumental spirit of the individual. By focusing on the tangible, the respectful, and the truthful, we ensure that the story of Muhammad Ali continues to be told with the accuracy and dignity he so rightfully deserves. His life was an open book, his rest is a private chapter, and that is as it should be for the man who was and always will be the greatest.